thank you everyone for joining me here on the High Ground podcast. I'm excited because been systematically making my way through all of the films with side topics and things like that on the way. And I finally hit the sequel trilogy. And so I'm excited because this is like, I didn't even know if I would get this far in making this podcast. So it's pretty cool for me. But yeah, I want to start by having us kind of go around, and because I love all you guys' content. You guys talk about this a lot. Haley, specifically, you started breaking down some like TFA stuff and how you did a TikTok on Ray looking at the old woman while she was doing it, and I was like, I gotta have her. I need to have her on. And then Alex, I've always loved your cosplay, and you've always been
thank you.
Really positive in the community. And then and Kev, like, you're TFA's #1 fan, and there's no way I was doing this without you. So awesome group. But yeah, let's kind of go around, and you can say who you are, how you got started with Star Wars, and what do you appreciate about supposed to be what you appreciate about the sequel trilogy. My notes were off, but you probably got that. I'll go. I'll go to Haley first, and also, what do you want me to call you on this?
It does not matter. Haley or corelliacoffeeworks does not matter to me. Let's see. So I have never really talked about this before because a lot of Star Wars fans are like very intense about their love, and so I've loved Star Wars, I've really enjoyed all of the movies since I was a little kid. My brother was like a huge fan, so we grew up like spending weekends watching the entire saga and like playing the Lego Star Wars video game. But I never really called myself a fan because I never got like deep into it until my family went to Galaxy's Edge last year and we went back to the hotel. Like I loved Galaxy's Edge, and then we went back to the hotel. Revenge of the Sith was on, and I was just like blown away. Downloaded Disney Plus the next day, watched the entire saga. Like, it was so big for me, and I'm late to the train, but I am so glad to be here. Like, I just love these movies.
That's interesting. No, I like that. I like that. And how about you, Alex?
So I got into Star Wars when I was 2 because my parents have a history of showing movies way too early. So I was 2 when they first showed me them, and I'm lucky enough, I don't know how old everyone else is, I've seen all of them in the movie theater. Not the original run of the original trilogy, but like when they re-released them with the new CGI, I saw all of that before I saw the prequels, and then I saw the sequels. And I have loved Star Wars since I was so little. I have a daughter now, and it's so much fun showing her Ray and being like, this is the main character. She's a girl too. And she just loves her to death. Her favorite character is Kylo Ren though, which is ridiculous. But
that's cool. Sadly, I don't have any kids. I wish I did so I can go through this with them. You know what I mean? Like, that would just be really cool. But how about you, Kev?
Yeah, so I've been a Star Wars fan my entire life. One of my earliest memories, like ever, is me sitting on my living room floor watching A New Hope on VHS. I don't remember anything from the movie except the purple smoke coming out of the door of the Tantive 4, and then all the stormtroopers coming out, and then Darth Vader coming out. It's the only thing I remember, but I was like 4 years old, so Star Wars has been a huge part of my life. Growing up, I had a best friend that we kind of grew up on Star Wars together with. We would always talk about it in elementary school, and he would come over to my house every Friday night, and we'd watch the new episode of the Clone Wars when it came out, and we'd make frozen pizza, and it was kind of like a weekly tradition. So I grew up on Star Wars, but I think I have somewhat of an interesting story with my relationship with Star Wars, because this was all happening in elementary school. But when I made the transition to middle school in my school district, there's a bunch of different elementary schools. So you kind of grow up with the same kids. But then once you hit 6th grade, you go to a new school with all the kids combined. And at the time, Disney hadn't bought Lucasfilm, and liking Star Wars was seen as a nerdy thing. And if you were a Star Wars fan, you were a nerd. People knew it. People were going to call you a nerd. So because I was going to a new school and I wanted to make new friends, I disassociated myself with anything Star Wars. I gave up on all of it. I didn't want to be seen as a nerd. I wanted nothing to do with it. So I didn't care about Star Wars, couldn't care less about anything in Star Wars related. Which is why I have such an appreciation for the sequels, and because why the sequels are my favorite is because I didn't get back into Star Wars until The Force Awakens, and kind of that build up period before the movie with all the teaser trailers and then the trailers, and then there was that Battlefront DLC on Jakku that kind of built the hype for me, and so I was like, okay, it's starting to reel me back in. Like, I'm starting to get back into Star Wars. And then I saw it on opening night in theaters with all my friends. Best night of my life. By far the most incredible movie theater experience I've ever had. And I'm not even kidding when I say it was a life-changing experience for me, because I would not be here right now if that night didn't happen. Which is a big reason why The Force Awakens is my favorite, and why the sequels are my favorite, and why I just absolutely love these films and Star Wars in general. So yeah, I'm back in, like, fully back into Star Wars now.
We're glad to have you. Oh man, like, just the excitement and anticipation, like, building up to The Force Awakens. I mean, for me, this movie holds a special place in my heart because I went to Star Wars Celebration when the first trailer came, like when J.J. Abrams was walking in line giving pizza before the first trailer ever dropped. So I was there, and it was awesome. I'll never forget it. I lived in Huntington Beach for a long time, but at this point in time I was living up in Sacramento, and it was down in Anaheim. So I met some of my friends there, and through them I kind of was introduced to a couple new people, and I have just made some amazing friends at that Star Wars Celebration. And then through those friends, I was able to move to San Diego, and that's where I live now, and that's where I met my wife and all this stuff. And all of it is because of The Force Awakens, which is weird to say, but it, like, really is, I don't know, it really does hold, like, a special place for me personally. Of course, I've been a Star Wars fan for a very long time, but oh man, I just made another connection, because when I moved here, that's where I had a job that was a lot of physical labor, and I had headphones in like 12 hours a day. And that's where I started listening to Star Wars audiobooks, and that's why I've been able to listen to hundreds of them, which is why I know so much about it. So it all goes back to The Force Awakens. That's interesting. I never even thought about that. Anyways, before I keep going off, that's kind of why it's so special to me. Although I will say, to me, the movie itself ranks in the middle, in the top half of the middle for me. I don't have an exact number for it right now, and I'm refraining from doing a full ranking until after I get through all the films. That's another reason I'm excited for it. But how about you? And I'll go to Alex first this time. Like, what is there anything else that makes it special, and where does it rank?
Yeah, so I'll keep this slightly brief and try not to cry when I talk about this. The Force Awakens came in a time in my life, like, just at the right time. I have Crohn's disease, and I was extremely ill when it came out. And following watching The Force Awakens, I had a surgery that went wrong. I almost died, and I was in the ICU for over a week. And this movie was what I clung to. This was what gave me hope and got me through that experience. Like, I went home unable to walk, and it was like 6 months later, I was running the Star Wars 5K in Disney World. Like, I fought my way back, because of this, and put triple buns in my hair. And I was like, let's do this. And it gave me so much hope. And probably that, of course, is going to affect its ranking. It is number one for me. And I rewatched it last night in anticipation for this podcast. I was like, oh, I need to give myself a little reminder. And in doing so, I was like, yes, this is still my number one Star Wars film. It's probably my favorite movie of all time. I just love this movie so much. And it's just it's J.J. Abrams doing what J.J. Abrams does best, which is just really happy nostalgia bomb of goodness. And I just really enjoy it.
Yeah, I like it. And how about you, Kev? I mean, I know it ranks number one, but
Oh, obviously, yeah. And it's also my favorite movie of all time. With me being as big of a Star Wars fan I am, of course, my favorite Star Wars movie is going to be my favorite movie. But it's just that my emotional attachment to the movie and why it's so special to me, because just the whole experience was I couldn't ask for anything better. I remember I saw it opening night. I was a sophomore in high school, but theaters were showing it the Thursday, like the midnight screening the night before. I didn't see it then. And I remember being in school on that Friday where people have already seen it. I'm not even kidding when I say this, I had my earbuds in all day blasting Metallica as loud as I could to not hear it. I was not going to let it get spoiled for me, not at all. So I was taking no chances. My ears were ringing by the end of the school day, but I was fine. Everything was okay. But just the whole experience was so special for me, and seeing it in theaters is what resparked and reignited my love and passion for Star Wars. And I got attached to these characters and to the story, and that's why the sequels are my favorite. And just I don't feel this way with any other movie that I do with The Force Awakens. So it is by far my favorite Star Wars movie. I don't think it's the best Star Wars movie, and there's definitely a difference between best and favorite, which I've gotten in many TikTok comment arguments about. But it's definitely my favorite. So,
although I'd argue that in terms of just quality, this is pretty close to the top. You know what I mean?
So good.
But yeah, how about you, Corellia Coffee?
Yeah, so I cannot order my favorite Star Wars movies, because like each time I watch any of them, I'm like, oh, it's the top of the list. Like, it's just all the movies are so good, or like even if quality wise they're not like the best, like they're just so fun. So I can like tell which ones I like more than others, kind of, but like there's no ranking. I really, really like The Force Awakens. Like, I just, every time I finish it, I just want to watch it again. And yeah, I just love the sequels, and this was such a great way to start that journey, and just amazing.
All right. Well, and yeah, so that's all. I was like, wait, I hit everyone, right? All right, so let's actually jump into the movie itself. And so I kind of like to break it down by act, and hopefully the way I broke it down makes sense for you guys. Because like in rewatching it, there's certain things I thought happened sooner or later, just from memory. But yeah, let's jump into the first act, which is, the opening crawl until basically Han gets reunited with the Falcon. Any, one or two moments that really jump out to you? We'll just go to Kev first.
Yeah, so a couple moments that stick out to me in the first act. I think the number one is meeting Rey for the first time, because when you see her for the first time, she gets, I'd say, probably about a solid 5 minutes of screen time without saying a single word. Mm-hmm. But in those 5 minutes, you learn so much about her character. She's this young woman who seems stranded on this planet, fighting day to day just to survive. She's got it rough. She doesn't have an easy life, but at the same time, you can tell that she's almost content with it, and she has her peace when she puts on that X-Wing helmet and just looks away. That makes me, I don't know how to describe what that makes me feel, but it makes me feel something. And then you learn so much about her within those 5 minutes. And like Haley, I think we talked about earlier, the scene where she's scrubbing the thing, and then she looks up at the woman and she sees what she's going to become if something doesn't change, and if her life doesn't take a different direction. And I just love the meeting Rey sequence, and Rey's theme, by far top 3 favorite Star Wars song for me. It is absolutely beautiful. I cannot get enough of it. And also, correct me if I'm wrong, that Star Destroyer we see, that's Ciena Ree's Inflictor, is it not?
Yes, the one that's crashed is Ciena Ree's spoilers.
Love that. Absolutely love that. Yeah, sorry, spoiler warning, I guess. Yeah, absolutely love that. And then another thing from the first act I'll talk about is Kylo Ren. Oh my gosh, by far my favorite character in Star Wars. So the first time you meet him, he seems pretty normal for a villain, I guess. He's very all black, very, very menacing, and when he kills Laura Santucker, you're like, okay, he's pretty ruthless. You know, don't mess with this guy. But then also, I'm pretty sure it happens in the first act when he learns that BB-8 got away and you know, he has his first temper tantrum. Yeah. But that's kind of when you see that, oh, he's not your stereotypical big bad villain like you kind of thought he was. He's got these layers to him, and he's got these emotions that he has trouble controlling, and there's just so much more to his character than initially you think there is. And I could talk about Kylo Ren for hours, so I'll leave it at that.
His introduction and then the music, the dun, 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 like, I don't know, it does it do be hitting different. I got you. And how about you, Haley?
This is less a moment and just like something that stands out to me, especially in the first couple of minutes. It's so funny, like the dialogue itself. Like Star Wars has always been funny, but like the who talks first, you talk first, I talk first, like that just every single time just gets like, it's so good. Yeah, so I mean, this movie has line after line that are so clever and so good. But I guess like a moment, oh my God, there are so many, so I'm trying to like sort through. Love Rey's introduction, obviously. Her little, like, the bread, awesome. I want to see more food in Star Wars. Oh my God, when Finn says, oh, like this droid has a map to Luke Skywalker, she says, Luke Skywalker, I thought he was a myth. Like, I think that's a really good telltale sign of like where the galaxy's at. Cause like backwater planets, like they wouldn't have the same knowledge that as the audience we have. So I think it's a good reminder that like not everyone knows that actually happened and like he was a real person and like is that important.
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, the whole galaxy before, at least when Luke was young, they actively suppressed any information about the Jedi. This one, they don't suppress it, but you still don't hear everything about it. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, your thoughts, Alex?
So I want to build off some of what Kevin was saying with Kylo Ren's opening. The moment in that opening for me that is so powerful is when he stops the blaster bolt. It blew my mind the first time I saw it that he not only just stops the bolt, he continues to have a conversation and then walk away, have another conversation, and the bolt's just hanging there the whole time. It's just like, and it was that moment that made me realize, oh my gosh, this guy has more power than maybe like anyone we've seen on screen. Like, what is happening? He doesn't even have to pay attention to it. And it's just there. And then when he finally walks away, it leaves. It goes. He's no longer controlling it. And I was like, oh my goodness, like how much power does this guy have that we're about to deal with here? Like it was just such a moment for me. And then in the first act, like the happiest moment for me was seeing the Falcon fly again. I remember like being in the theater, like, oh my gosh, it's happening. Like, there it goes. Like, they're like, the trash will do. And I was just like, it's the Falcon. And it was just such a happy moment in the movie theater. And like, I know there's always some controversy about her being able to fly it, but like, she's not even good at it, which I think is like hilarious and like beautiful. And like the beginning, she's just like constantly hitting the ground until she figures out what she's doing with it. And it's just such a good sequence. It always brings a big smile to my face.
Yeah. And it's funny because it's like, why wouldn't she be able to fly it? She's obviously familiar with it. She knows what's under the sheet there. Like, she's fixed ships. She's flown ships. She told us she was a pilot. Like, why wouldn't... And it's funny, but it's an ongoing struggle of like, but she flew without a co-pilot. You don't need two pilots. Two people aren't flying it at the same... They're doing other stuff.
And she even has dialogue in that moment too, where she's like, "This is really hard to do without a co-pilot,and and she's
trying to reach for stuff. Yeah,
yeah. So she's not doing the best, but yeah.
But For me, like you guys hit the nail on the head. I think this is the strongest introduction to the main protagonists of any film, in Star Wars, right? I mean, we get a perfect characterization of Finn, a conflicted stormtrooper who is not on board with the loss of life. And then, right at the very beginning, first thing we get is the first hint that he's force sensitive because Kylo Ren senses something about him. You don't know what it is. It's just it's so cool. And then you get Poe's of he's off on this, gallivanting around the galaxy on this mission, and he's a total flyboy. His introduction is funny and he's smug. And even when Finn is trying to explain, like, I want to do what's right, he's like, nah, you just need a pilot. He's like, yeah, I need a pilot. Rey's introduction showing how hard of a life that she has, yet she appreciates like all these small moments, and she's has fun sliding down the hill because of course you're gonna have fun doing that, and it's still has this kind of hope about her. But a biggest impression of all was Kylo's impression and when this started for me, because everyone's saying like this is going to be the next Vader, he's going to be the next Vader, and you see how powerful he is on this stuff, and I love how this movie presents that strong front, and then you slowly get to see the cracks, and you're like, oh no, this ain't Vader. Like, oh man, like I don't know, it just makes me happy, and I think the way these four were introduced is just perfect, better than any of the other ones. But yeah, I mean, any other thoughts? Sorry, we went through that part faster than I had intended.
Yeah, I just want to say, I saw the movie 3 different times in theaters when it came out, and one of the times I saw it in IMAX 3D, and I will never forget that when he froze that blaster bolt, that was in 3D right in front of your face, and that was super cool. That was really cool.
Me and my buddy Travis, again, I lived up in Sacramento, but there's the 2 best IMAXs in the country. One of them is in DC, I want to say, and the other one's in San Francisco. So we drove out to San Francisco just to watch Force Awakens for like the 5th time in theater and 3D, and we snuck in craft beer because that's just our thing. It's just the best time, just the best.
I do want to say, like, I'm so impressed with the facial expressions of all the characters. Like, so much storytelling is shown through their faces in like seemingly small moments, but like it's so powerful. And it's shown like from the very start through the entire trilogy.
Oh my God, yes. I mean, the TikTok that made me like want to get you on, where we see the old lady who's content with her lot in life, and that is going to become Rey if she doesn't do something about it. And Rey is offered that she can turn in BB-8, and she gets a ton of food, which is everything that she needs to stay here and not do anything. Like, they build out her character so much, and it's really quite beautiful, where she is caring, but she wants to stay, and she just keeps getting pulled along. I often quote it as the Shakespeare quote of some people are born great, which is Anakin, the chosen one. Some people do great things, and that's Luke, who rose to the occasion, and someone have greatness thrust upon them, and that's Rey, who doesn't want any of this crap. And she just keeps getting swept along of like, you have to run or you'll die.
I also love, like, with that like when you see that first running sequence with her and Finn, like, she doesn't know how to accept help from anyone else. She spent her entire life alone, so that's why we keep getting that repeated line of like, stop taking my hand. Like, she doesn't understand what's going on in that interaction. Like, I don't need somebody to protect me. I've never had somebody to protect me. And they, like, finally, when she sees him get hurt, she's the one who offers her hand to him. And that's sort of when like their relationship sort of changes, because he asks her, "Are you okay?" Like, it's that moment of somebody finally is asking me, "Am I okay?" Does somebody actually cares about me?
Yeah.
And there's like a total change in their relationship at that point, from like, "I'm pushing you away," to, "Okay, let's go do this together." And I love their friendship so much. Like, they're adorable. Like,
yeah, I mean, especially because it sounds like you read the novelization.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, because that moment in the novelization, I mean, Finn is knocked out cold. And then he wakes up and is like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "First of all, who's saving who here? Second of all, no one's ever asked me that as far as I can ever remember." Which is just, I don't know, it's touching. But then, all right. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Kev.
Yeah, I just want to say one more thing I really like about that too is when they revealed the Falcon. I absolutely love the way they went about that, because they didn't hype it up at all. They didn't like present it on this grand pedestal. They literally just she called it garbage, and then the garbage will do, and the camera pans, and then you just see the Falcon. And I will not forget being in the theater opening night. Everybody just went crazy, and that was another thing too. Is every time an old character or something would pop up on the screen, everybody in the theater would just go insane, and that was such an incredible experience. But that Falcon reveal I thought was done so well, and I love it.
That was actually almost the name of this podcast, Garbage Will Do. That was like really, yeah, I loved it. But yeah, all right. So jumping forward, we go into the second act of the film. I'm calling this one, Chewie, we're home. From that scene until all the way through when Ray gets taken. We actually spent a good amount of time in between these 2 points learning more about this universe and these characters. And I will go to Haley first on this one. What jumps out at you on this opening part?
Yeah. So I want to talk about Maz, because I think Maz Kanata is like such a big turning point in this whole movie. Just because it's when Ray finally starts to like make the connections within herself, like realizes that her parents are probably not going to come back, like realizes that she might have a bigger story than what she like was totally content with back on Jakku. And she like learns about the Force. So that whole scene at Maz's palace was like so great. And after everyone else answers, I would love to talk about the lightsaber scene, because like that's the one thing I never really got. Like I get the Force power, but like what's she seeing? Like that's not just like Luke and Anakin's memories with the lightsaber. It's something more. So I just love her relationship with Maz and like how it changes for her.
What you seek is in front of you, not behind. And like when you find out what that means throughout the rest of it. But you're absolutely right about that lightsaber scene. I too have questions. I mean, it was somewhat confirmed in the Star Wars book that she has at least some form of psychometry, which is seeing the history surrounding an object. Yeah. One of the questions I get asked often is, how come she didn't see it murdering younglings? You don't see everything about the object. You don't see all of it. You just see a random clip. You don't see, when you play Fallen Order, if every single time you touched an object, you had to watch like 150 years of history, the game would be really long. You know what I mean? But yeah, as far as we understand it, it started as psychometry, but she also had a Force vision that butted up immediately after that. And you get to see a bunch of visions of like side visions and then future visions, which is really
so
interesting.
Cool. Yeah. And I love that, like she literally says like, I want no part in this. Like it just, the character development is there. And I can't stand when people say she has no character development, because it's so obvious.
Yeah.
Or when people are like, no, it's Anakin's saber. And you're like, she didn't want it, ever.
She literally refused it.
She's like, no. And then, like, even in Rise of Skywalker, she's like, I will earn your brother's saber. Like, it's still not even hers. And then at the end, she buries it where Shmi is buried. So she didn't keep it. Like, she never thought it was hers. But don't get me started. I get that.
That's a whole different.
That's a whole different rant.
How about you, Alex? Here in the second act, what do you think?
So there's one scene, like one moment I have to point out, or my husband will be so angry with me. This is like his favorite thing to point out to anybody, and I know he's watching, so I have to do it. But there's the biggest hint that Finn is force sensitive in this act, and that's when the Hosnian system is destroyed. No one around him turns to look. No one is actually screaming around him, but he hears screams and he looks. And we always sort of thought, oh, hey, he's force sensitive. And then they never did anything with it in The Last Jedi. And then it was like, oh, no, they did. So that was always something for us. That was the biggest hint for us that he was actually force sensitive, because we see non-force sensitive people use lightsabers all the time. But like that was something that like he sensed it before anyone else was looking that this happened.
That.
Yeah, no, and honestly, I can't even take credit. That was my husband. That's his like favorite thing.
All right, so A, I'm gonna have to go back and watch that. B, I will also be making a TikTok about that specifically. But
and I'd also like to talk about the vision because we had brought it up, and I have spent a lot of time going into that vision, and especially the costumes in the vision, because I'm a cosplayer and like figuring all of that out. One of the things she sees is Kylo killing the clan leader on Mustafar, which is in The Rise of Skywalker. So the person that she sees run through happens in The Rise of Skywalker. So but it's not raining and he's in the wrong costume. So that certainly raises questions. But I mean, that's continuity going through a trilogy that you didn't know what his costume was going to be. And he does have the knights with him in that scene. And we obviously see stuff in the past, and then we also see him come forward what looks like Starkiller base forest area. So I'm assuming that she's seeing her future fight with Kylo, and those are the two sort of future visions that she sees. And now that we know that they're a dyad in the Force, it kind of makes sense that she sees multiple visions of Kylo in that moment. One thing that's in the novelization that's not in the movie that I like is that there's dialogue from her father when he's leaving her. He says, "Don't worry, sweetheart, I'll come back for you." And I remember like when the Last Jedi came out, and then they said like, "Oh no, your parents sold you." There were so many theories of like who was talking to her. She remembers a man talking to her. Who was it? It was her father, because now we have this completed arc. But yeah, that was one of the most interesting things. I kind of wish they had kept that in from the original script, or if they had recorded it, because I thought that scene was really good and led credence to like your parents actually cared about you and they were trying to keep you here to protect you, not to just like push you off, sort of thing.
Yeah, because it always did make me chuckle a little bit of, yeah, they did sell you, but they did it because they loved you, and you're like, wait, did money change hands? I need to know this.
So like, I can actually like kind of like rectify that in my mind, as in like, someone like Unkar Plot wouldn't just take a girl to protect her. So they needed to like come up with some sort of reasoning of like, this is why we're giving you this girl, sort of thing, to keep her safe. And all Kylo is seeing is her memories, not the actual truth. And that's what she's sort of like psychologically buried away from being 5 years old. And so he's not actually lying to her. That's just what he thinks is the truth. So I can like kind of make that make sense, but at the same time I'm also like, God, that line was not good and you made him deliver it with a mask on, so it was not helpful. If we had seen his eyes, I feel like it would have gone better.
Oh man, that also means I'm gonna have a question for you specifically when we get to the third act.
Okay,
but also another quick question: what's your husband's name? I want to credit him when I make my TikTok.
Mark. He doesn't have a TikTok. He just comes onto mine occasionally. He hates social media.
All right. Well, I'm going to call him Mark the Wolf.
Perfect.
How about you, Kev?
Yeah, so kind of rewinding a little bit before we even get to Takadana, I think one of the best parts of this movie is Han Solo. I think Han Solo absolutely shines in this film. Everything he says, everything he does is just so on the mark. And one of my favorite scenes is the conversation on the freighter when he's trapped between a Kanji Club and the Guavian Death Gang and trying to get out of it, and just all those little clips. And it's like, Kanji Club wants their investment back too. He's like, I never made a deal with Kanji Club. Tell that to Kanji Club. And then Kanji Club says that like it happened twice, and he goes, when was the second time? Just Han Solo is, I absolutely loved him in this film. If there's one thing
I'll talk us out of it. I do it every time.
Yeah, I do every time. If there's one part of the film I'm not super in love with, it's the Rathtar sequence. I don't know why. To me, it just the pacing. But that's not important. I absolutely love everything about this film. Forget I said that. But just that conversation on the freighter, and just another thing too is when BB-8 pulls up the map and Han Solo has that little spiel about the Force and Luke Skywalker. Man, that hit me. That was such a well done and well executed scene, and you get to see this like guilt he's feeling almost of remembering his past and kind of just looking back on all of that and seeing where his life is now and his relationship with Leia and Luke and obviously his son, and it's so good, so good.
I think you're muted.
Yeah.
Yes, I was.
There you are.
Okay, good. I thought it was on my end for a second.
I know. I was like, uh-oh.
I was like, oh, they're reacting weird. Maybe I'm saying something profoundish. I don't know. Oh, no. But I was like, first of all, BB-8 is amazing. Watching him roll around the Falcon and like try to be still, it was just hilarious.
When he has shoots the strings out until
like, oh.
And we also get the famous thumbs up scene, and like and we get to see Ray just being done with Finn of like, it's that one no, like I don't know, that just makes me smile. But you know, when Han comes aboard, what we also get the first bonding moment, right, with him and Ray, where he walks up and he's like, oh, some moof milker put a compressor on the ignition line, and then at the same time, and she's like, yeah, that was Unkar Plutt did it, but it's a bad idea because it'll put too much pressure on the hyperdrive, and they finish each other's sentences, and it's just kind of a cute moment, you know what I mean? Showing that they actually have this connection, and they kind of establish that there, and then obviously is a prelude to what happens later when they're in hyperspace and there is too much pressure on it, and so she bypasses the compressor. But Han saying it's true, all of it, in the same place where he was like, oh, hokey religions and ancient weapons, like it's nothing like a good blaster by your side. It's just like a beautiful moment. I don't know, just that one just makes me happy in general. And as well as the Maz Kanata, where's my boyfriend? I don't know. I love that too.
She's so great.
What do you think of the scene? Is it a deleted scene, or was it only in the novelization where Unkar Plutt follows them to Takodana?
Yes.
You guys have any thoughts
it's
on that?
It's a deleted
Alex?
scene and also in the novel. Yeah, like, and Chewie rips his arm off.
And tosses it on a table.
Yeah.
And they just kind of brush it off the table and keep playing cards. I know, I just, like, there's some of those scenes I really did wish made it, but overall, it was great. Also, one of the most beautiful things, I think, is when the First Order does make it, because stupid Bazine Natal had to call. Although her book is actually kind of decent. Perfect Weapon. You should check it out. But the the scene where the X-wing is like skimming across the water and stuff coming towards it, it's just beautiful. Any thoughts on that fight?
Yeah, March of the Resistance, I think is such an underrated song. That track is hype, and it never fails to excite me. And seeing the Resistance come and just absolutely mess everybody up. And I love that one shot of Poe when he just absolutely goes off. He gets 13 kills in that one shot, and that's just cool. And then Finn's on the ground that season. He goes, "Yeah, that's one hell of a pilot." And then it cuts to Poe going, "Woohoo!" You know, it's just such a good moment.
And that's your friend.
Yeah.
And how about you guys? Any thoughts on the battle scene?
Yeah, so battle scenes are honestly not my favorite in all of Star Wars. So like they're not what I'm drawn to from all the movies, which is kind of funny because it's like Star Wars. So I thought the battle was really cool, like as the first or second after the opening scene. But yeah, when the Resistance comes in, it is so great. Like the music John Williams like worked his magic like he always does, but like that was serious. That was awesome. Finn with the lightsaber, like, oh my God.
Yeah. Oh man. And also in the second act, we got to see how powerful the Wookiee bowcaster was and absolutely obliterate people. So yeah, that part just it does just make me happy.
That comes into play later too.
I was gonna say that's so
to show
important
how much
to understanding the end.
That can do. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just have to make sure I touch on these before we get there. But yeah, all right. So jumping forward into the third act of the film, and this is, you know, I mean, real briefly touching on exactly when Rey does get kidnapped, where she feels like she's confident with a blaster. We've seen her fight with melee combat, right? And that's one thing. Yeah, she thought she was gonna do something there, and she fires a bunch, and it does less than nothing, and she gets frozen instantly, knocked unconscious, and she failed pretty hard at that moment. But yeah, moving into the third act, that's when we get their interrogation. That's when we get, you know, Han and Leia reuniting. And let's run from this third act to the end of the movie, and we'll start with Alex on this one.
So probably the scene I've watched the most in The Force Awakens, because I am an unashamed 2015 Reylo, is the interrogation scene. And like, I'm going to preface this with saying there is nothing romantic about the interrogation scene, and I'm not trying to suggest that at all. It's just, but that was the
you do
scene.
You.
No, but like, I don't think it is. But that was the scene that I went and realized, oh, they're setting this up to be something else. Because there's such a juxtaposition between the interrogation with Poe and the interrogation with Rey. I mean, obviously I'm saying this in relative terms, but he treats her gently to the way that he treats Poe. And it's like, and obviously he's still torturing her, but it was fascinating to me. Like, why did he take off his helmet? Why did he even like grant her that at all? Why did he actually want to learn about her versus going for the map? He could have gone straight for the map, but instead he was finding out about her past. And it was so intriguing of like, why are you interested in her? And the novelization even has a moment with Snoke where he accuses her of him of having compassion for her, and that's why he couldn't do it. And I was like, oh, okay, I see where you're like going to set this up. And like, I had no idea at this point that it was ever going to be reciprocated by Rey. I kind of figured she would think that he was a monster through the entire like trilogy. And then The Last Jedi happened, and I was like, okay, yes, that's exactly where we're going. But I was like, okay, they're setting up some sort of different relationship here where it's not just going to be adversary. They're like, he's fascinated by her for some reason.
Yeah, I
So
mean, we
love
have
that.
Marelius Wolf in the chat saying he bridal carried her off of
That's
the
my
planet.
husband.
Okay, I thought it might have been.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, he did. He bridal carries her. He doesn't just let her hit the ground. He's like, whoop, and then he just bridal carries her up onto the ship. And they've like literally released LFL official art that's like a romance cover of that scene, which is the most ridiculous thing.
all right, I need to
I
find that.
Yeah, no, it was from Celebration 2009. No, the last Celebration, whatever that was. But I left the movie the first time and I was like, this movie was great. And I really ship Finn and Ray. And my husband was like, I ship Kylo and Ray. I'm like, what are you talking about? What? No. And then I went and watched the movie again and I was like, oh, okay. I see where you're going with this. And I still didn't know it was going to like happen, but I was like, okay, I kind of get it. But
I'm a big fan of Knights of the Old Republic. And
yes. Yeah.
You know, as you're playing the game, like Revan and Bastila have this weird connection. They don't know what it is. And you're like, I need to find it. Like you keep playing, you're like, I gotta find out what it, and that's what I felt like. Like, okay,
yeah.
there's something here. Like
my original theory following The Force Awakens was that they accidentally created a force bond in the interrogation scene. And that's why she was able to do all that she was able to do and why she was able to get into his head. I thought it was an accident. And then obviously it turned out to be something different. But I remember my husband and I literally, like, when they released the visual novel before The Last Jedi came out and they said that the Force Bomb was a thing, we were screaming in the car together. We were like, like, it was just so exciting. But the moment in the third act that for me is the greatest moment in the entirety of the Star Wars saga is when the saber comes to Rey in that fight. I sat in the movie theater and sobbed when that happened. Like, just so many happy tears of like, I grew up with Luke Skywalker as my favorite character, but did not understand at age like 3 why like he was my favorite. But I would always, like, when I was pretending to be character, say I was Leia, but with a lightsaber. Because I just didn't understand, like, oh, I just don't relate that much to a male character because I'm a very feminine person. And then that happened, and I finally got, like, the Jedi hero that, like, I had been waiting for since I was a child, and that representation and that moment. And it was so powerful for me. And I still cry. I cried last night, but I watched it again. Like, it is so good. And, like, even, like, I do love, too, that, like, when she catches it and they pan back to Kylo, he just looks, like, in shock. He's not even angry. He's just like, oh, what just happened? And it's such a great moment. And that whole fight scene is so good.
and that's exactly, like, my thought of watching Endgame when Cap gets the hammer. I feel like they just watched The Force Awakens and ripped off that moment. Not that it's bad or anything. It's an excellent moment, but it's the same moment, you know? How about you, Kev? What jumps out at you this
Yeah, one
act?
of the moments from Act 3 I really like is when Kylo is in his chambers talking to Vader's helmet that he's got there, because that's a moment where you really see the conflict within him. He's literally just like, I feel the pull to the light again. Like, show me, grandfather, the power of the dark side, and I will finish what you started. And you see he's vulnerable to this pull to the light side, and he's got this conflict within him. And then once we get to the Han Solo part, I want to get more into that, but you see that he's struggling, and throughout the rest of the trilogy too. I think because of the scene, you always knew that there was a very good chance that he could go back to the light. But also, again, seeing Darth Vader's helmet all crushed up like that was sweet. And that was.
And sorry to interrupt, but I just, like, my brain is weird. But like you saying that also, it jumps out at me because unlike the original trilogy, we got introduced to the big bad in this one, right? It was Empire where we found out Vader's not the big bad. He answers to someone, you know. But that he was struggling with the light comes right after, like, getting a dressing down from Snoke, and you're like, this is the big bad, and it's just it really recontextualizes the character all within the first movie, which is just unique. But sorry, continue.
Yeah. And plus with Snoke too, I remember all the theories when The Force Awakens first came out. Oh, who was Snoke? Everybody was trying to figure out who Snoke was. Just what a time to be a Star Wars fan. And then I also love just when, I don't remember exactly when it was, but it was when Hux and Kylo were in Snoke's chambers. You get to see the tension between Kylo and Hux. Like, they are not friends. They have this tension within them, but they both answer to Snoke. Snoke is by far the most important person there, but the tension between Hux and Kylo was super interesting. And I also really I loved Hux in this movie. I thought Hux was such an interesting character. You see, he kind of reminded me of Grand Moff Tarkin at first, because he's just kind of like that officer position. But you see him when he gives that speech on Starkiller Base, that you see how ruthlessness and how intense he can be. And I just thought that was such an interesting part about his character. And obviously they kind of took him in a different direction afterwards. But Hux in this movie, I enjoyed very much. And then another moment, going back to the interrogation scene in your episode about Kylo Ren with, I think it was Miss Eggy, who was talking about when he's talking in that moment, he says like, you're so lonely, so afraid to leave. He's not really just speaking about Rey. He's kind of talking about himself in a way, because his background and his past, if you, not in the movie, but like with all the extra material. And he's really lonely and isolated, and he's not necessarily where he needs to be, but he's just kind of going with everything, I guess. And that you're so lonely, so afraid to leave is really interesting to think about, and just thinking about the depths of his character and how, like, where he is, like, mentally, and just everything about him. It's super interesting. And I think I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, just great stuff all around, and it makes me mad because I forgot to mention Hux and how we established Hux as the anti-Kylo, where one is powerful, like menacing and dark. This one is almost scarier in a sense, but like put together and just like, yeah. And we get to also introduce, Captain Phasma, who we didn't talk about as well. Now, she didn't end up having a huge part, but she was the antagonist specifically to Finn, which we got to see early on in the movie. Haley, your thoughts on this third act?
Yeah, I have to talk about Kylo and Han and the big scene because, wow, like, I was watching it last night and just like crying because, I mean, I cry at everything, but like this was, I mean, it's like amazing. I think the least of the intense feelings, Harrison Ford wanted to die since like the original trilogy. So I'm so glad his death was like so meaningful, because, I mean, clearly George Lucas could have been like, okay, fine, you're gone. But they saved it for the best moment. And yeah, this, sorry, I'm reading my notes because there's just so much. Ben kind of thought that killing his dad would, cut off his feelings towards his family, or like distance himself in some way. But just because he did that act and the guy is gone does not mean he's any less attached to that. And I loved being able to see Ben from the very beginning. I can't really decide on my favorite character, but it's between Kylo Ren and Rey, because like, they're just so good. And Kylo obviously, or Ben, has a difficult relationship with his parents. Like, we don't know all what's going down. I haven't read the Kylo Ren comics, but really hoping they get like adapted to a TV show or something, because like I would love to hear about it. And both of them just have so many emotions in that scene, and like, going back to what I said earlier, the facial expressions are just so real. And like the lighting on Kylo's face, like when it's red and blue, and then eventually the sun gets sucked out, so it's all red. Like that was so great.
I made an entire TikTok on that one time because the symbolism of the red and the blue light, because in that moment, you know, he's still full of that conflict and he doesn't know what he's going to do. But then the sun gets drained and all the blue goes away from his face and it fills with red. And he's made up his mind. He's committed to the dark side. He's going to kill his father. So good. I could talk about that scene for forever. It seems like I love it so much.
One of the like interesting things too about the lighting in that is that the sun is coming from the opening where Rey is watching, and so it's like coming from her back down onto them. And there's a concept art of that is just like chef's kiss beautiful. Like, oh my gosh, like I agree. The lighting of that scene is so good.
God, and the thank you he says right before Han falls, like everything about that scene just so gets me because. The thank you and the hand touch, and especially after seeing The Rise of Skywalker, like that is just beautiful storytelling of this in the beginning and then this at the end, like incredible.
Yeah, it's funny because I hear complaints about how people feel like, oh, the sequels, they weren't that connected or whatnot, but I'm not gonna lie, this more than any other of the other trilogies that I've done podcasts on, it's hard to talk about one moment in this movie without talking about how it's reflected in these other ones. I'm just making this connection now, but it may be the most connected.
Sorry, go ahead, Haley.
No, I was just going to say, like, in the beginning with Rey on the Star Destroyer and then on the Death Star in the last one, like, amazing. Yeah,
I think it's a problem in general that Star Wars has that they don't start with an outline. Like, and it's not just this trilogy. It's all of them. I say this a lot to people that, like, I think with this new trilogy, they should have done what the MCU did, which was like, we know we want to get from this point to this point. You directors can do what you want in between, but this is the point we want to get to. And they didn't do that. But they didn't do that for the original trilogy. And they kind of did it for the prequels because we knew where we were going from the beginning. But, I mean, they originally were definitely setting up Luke and Leia to be a romantic relationship. Like, you cannot tell me that that's not what they were doing. So,
literally, George Lucas was like, all right, we got to resolve this this romantic triangle.
I love Star Wars so much. Obviously, it's my top fandom. It's my favorite thing in the whole world. But, like, there are continuity issues throughout the entirety of Star Wars. And sometimes you just have to take it with a grain of salt.
And but another thing, and it's already been confirmed because even it was Pablo Hidalgo who's was in the news recently, but he is the keeper of the lore. Like beneath George Lucas, Pablo Hidalgo knows the most about Star Wars, and in 2014, he made it clear that this was about the scavenger girl, and she's going to end up being our Skywalker. So they did absolutely start with an outline, but still gave everyone like a framework, and you had whatever room to play around. They did do a lot of radical changes before 9 that we know about, but changing from the plan does not mean you didn't have a plan. Changing from your plan means that you had a plan. But that's a whole another topic.
It's true, well. Yeah.
And I started with Alex on this one. So, Haley, did you give us your thoughts on?
Yeah, I was talking about the Han and Kylo.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Incredible.
And so we didn't talk about their fight. That pops up, the fight between Ray and Kylo Ren that happens. Now, obviously, Kylo is nowhere near full strength because he just got shot in the stomach by a Wookiee bowcaster that we've seen one shot everyone. They fly across the room. He was able to absorb it as much as he can. But I gotta ask your guys' thoughts on the fight because first thing that happens is she tries to stand up and she gets yeeted into a tree. And then Finn steps up to the plate. But you guys have any thoughts on this portion?
Yeah. I just want to say first, I think it's visually stunning. The dark forest in contrast with the red and the blue lightsabers and absolutely beautiful. There are two very nitpicky things I want to get into before we talk about the fight. One, how did Kylo beat them out to the forest? Like, I've tried to think of this so much. The logically, like, it doesn't make sense because Rey and Finn are up on this platform and Kylo's on the bridge. But by the time Rey and Finn get out to the forest, seems like he's been there a while already.
It's that scene from Emperor's New Groove. It's like, it doesn't make any sense by any account.
Right. And then,
although I do wonder exactly where that took place, because we already know that there is a whole deleted scene of them on speeders and stuff. Like, Starkiller Base is not. It's not one thing. It's a whole bunch of structures on a planet. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it is entirely possible we just didn't get that bit.
I remember there was one night I was on a TikTok live and I pulled out a whiteboard and I was drawing a map and I was trying to figure out, okay, how exactly did Kylo get out there first? And then another thing too, and this is much more obscure. So we see Kylo drop his helmet on the bridge, and then obviously he gets shot and he marches off. And then that's where the oscillator is that Poe goes and blows up. And we see Kylo have his helmet in The Last Jedi. Did he and I haven't read the Force Awakens novelization because I just got into Star Wars books this past year and I haven't made it that far yet. So I don't know if it's not touched on. How? No. So did he force pull his helmet to make sure he got it back? But then if he did do that, where did he put it? Because it's nowhere to be seen in the forest. So what did he do with his helmet? I don't know. That's
my assumption was that he had more than one, but then in The Rise of Skywalker, they're like, we're going to rebuild it. I'm like, so you don't have more than one.
Well, it's got the same.
Or Hux ran through there looking for him as a way to
Hux had a jetpack to go get him. It's like in one of his action figures, he has a jetpack, and it's I have this vision of him just coming down from the sky.
I have said with my friends, every single episode of The Mandalorian, why doesn't every single Star Wars character have a jetpack? It's the most useful accessory.
And Mandalorian, that's a whole different topic, because episode 2 of season 2, you showed us that you can call it remotely with your glove. So why didn't you use it to go save Grogu? Why were you running up a hill? The hell happened? Where did your rifle go? You dropped the rifle and the jetpack, and you came back with the jetpack, but you didn't use it. Where's the rifle? What happened? Yeah, but that's a whole. These things don't have to be. They've never been perfect to begin with, and so and we don't need them perfect now. But yeah, there are things that
it's a space fantasy. Let some things slide.
I just think that stuff's fun to think about sometimes. But yeah, going back and talking about the fight, a lot of people, especially on TikTok, will absolutely crap on the sequel lightsaber fights. You always see those videos. It's like, oh, how did we go from this? And they show the Obi-Wan fight to this, and they show a clip of a sequel lightsaber fight. And to me, the sequel lightsaber fights make perfect sense why they look like that in the context of the Star Wars universe. Because obviously with the prequels, the Jedi Order is still around. Lightsaber fights are still happening. They happen a lot. We're talking 50 plus years after the Jedi Order has been wiped out. Lightsaber fights don't happen really anymore. People aren't fighting the way they used to. And it makes perfect sense why they're not over the top doing Obi-Wan spins and flips and everything. And I just think that if you take the time to think about where the Star Wars universe is and what's happening at that time, it makes perfect sense why they look the way they do. Also, I really like the way they look. I think it's obviously more grounded than the prequel lightsaber fights, but I feel like I was trying to come up with a word to describe it, and I really couldn't think of anything. So I'm going to say I think they have a little bit more spice than the original trilogy fights did, especially the one in A New Hope. But I think it's a good mix of both. It's a good mix of the prequel lightsaber fights and the original trilogy fights, and I think they're entertaining, and I can't get enough of them.
I especially love this fight because as you're watching it, you're watching Kylo Ren do some very specific things of either like Makashi, where he's taking Rey's swipe or whatever, and he's going with that same momentum and sweeping her attack away, or she tries to hit him and he just hits straight through her attack of like, nope, that's nothing. And I don't know, it just, to me, it makes sense. And it actually, because you see her doing a lot of, broad swings and stuff like that. That's how Luke fought. Do we forget? I mean, you watch Return of the Jedi, and Luke is at the beginning. Luke is on the sail barge, and he's just swinging wildly side to side. That's what he does when Vader calls out, "Oh, you have a sister." That's exactly how he does it. But I love the fight because of the layers of it. You know what I mean? Like, we see him get shot in the stomach. First of all, like a stomach wound is the most painful wound because there's a lot of stuff down there that shouldn't get mixed up. You know what I mean? Like, you should. Yeah. Not only that, but we saw how much damage this thing can do. But as we watch this fight play out, first he fights Finn. And in this final act, I mean, we got to see him take off his helmet. By the way, I know a lot of women find Adam Driver to be beautiful, but I have to say, when he took off his helmet, I thought he looked like a wet dog. I was like, why is his face so long? Why the long face, buddy?
He's the most attractive little sheepdog there ever is. Like, that's exactly what he is.
No, but I loved it because it established, like, oh no, this isn't Vader. This guy is unhinged, and his goal is to get there. And he doesn't even think in himself that he's going to get there. And Rey calls that out. But as we're watching him fight, we're like, yeah, this is not the same, but he's still powerful. So he's fighting Finn, and he's just toying with Finn this entire time. He knocks Finn on his butt and could finish Finn right there, and he doesn't. He turns around and walks away, lets Finn get back up. As soon as Finn does get a hit on him, he's like, nope, all right, playtime's over. Yeet, sends the lightsaber flying, slashes him in back, on to the next one. And he does the same thing with Rey. Through 90% of the fight, she's in full retreat. She cannot run away from him fast enough. And he holds her to a cliff and is like, you need a teacher. And he's basically saying, like, I'm showing you the difference here. You should join me, because they have this connection. And I love that throughout this entire movie, we've had the Force whispering to Rey. You know what I mean? We can hear it because there's an audio cue of like a twinkling audio cue. And it's what led her to the lightsaber, and it does a whole bunch of things. But that's what we learned that the Force does. When Luke is training with Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan's not teaching him how to deflect bullets. He's teaching him how to trust his instincts, how to listen to the Force. And so when she finally does that, and the scene and her facial expressions mirror Luke in the X-Wing when he makes the shot of, like, stops, calms down, breathes, closes his eyes, and listens to the Force. And that's when she gains power. But that's the thing I wanted to ask you about, Alex, because in the novelization, there's a voice there telling her stuff. Any thoughts?
So there's two moments in the novelization and for this scene that I want to talk about. And number one is that there is a voice that's telling her to kill him in that moment. And that is questionable whether it's like a dark side voice within her, like, own thing of what she's dealing with, or if it's somebody else. I always thought maybe it could be Snoke, or maybe now we know it's Palpatine, because it could have been that. And I always found that interesting. There's another moment though when when the saber comes to her, he looks at her in the book and he says, "It is you."
Yeah.
Like, he knows who she is. It is you. And we know they recorded it because an action figure says it. There is a Kylo Ren doll that came out that says that. And after Last Jedi came out, I was like, well, what was that supposed to mean? I don't understand anymore.
Same.
And now, but now I'm guessing the reasoning for it is that she's his dyad, because we know from the comics that she has a connection with him even when she's a child on Jakku. And so it is quite possible that he has felt her as well. And so I'm going to assume now that it's just him saying, "It is you. You're the person I have a connection with. Maybe that's why I'm so interested in you." It's a moment that is so interesting and so good. And yep. There you go. He's got it. It's a moment that's so interesting and so good. And I wish they had kept it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it left the cutting room floor because they had already written The Last Jedi, because they wrote The Last Jedi before the movie came out. That's possible. Or it's just possible they just didn't want it anymore. Like, I'm not going to make assumptions of what they actually decided on doing, but it's such a fascinating moment, especially now that we're like, okay, it could be the dyad thing. I have an answer for it now. But yeah, and then so we have that, and we have the voice, and there's just so much going on in the novelization in that scene that I think is just so interesting, like underneath the layers.
Yeah. I love it because and I can imagine them being like, no, we can't have this in because we don't want to spoil like the surprise or whatever. And now people are like, there's no planning. And you're like, no, but it was there. Like, you can't, okay, whatever. But yeah, that "it is you" moment did stick with me a lot. I do love it. Okay, and so we were talking about Starkiller Base, and then he obviously gets rescued from it. Somewhat reluctantly. But I just love how they set up Hux's character of these guys are at each other's throats, but they're both trying to please the same person. And it's interesting how that plays out in the future. Now, after that, and all is said and done, and they make it off of Starkiller Base before it implodes, which is sad because that was Ilum. That's where the Jedi go to get their lightsaber crystals. Sad day. But we also get something that J.J. Abrams admits was a huge failure on his part, is to not have Chewie interact with Leia after
I was just about to bring that up.
Yeah.
Yep. He just walks right past her with no acknowledgement, just straight past.
They did try to write around it, but like, oh, when someone dies, Wookiees grieve differently. But we know what it is, which is okay. Yeah. But any thoughts of the end of this, of them coming back, of them putting the map together, of them in the final scene in Scotland?
One of my only complaint probably about this movie is, why did R2 wake up in that moment? I don't actually, do you know? Because I don't understand it. If you have a reason, I would love it.
This is purely headcanon, but I think it's just because Rey is finally at the base, and Rey just, like, she's force sensitive. She has like a lot of similarities to Luke, and R2 is just like, I feel something. It's time. So
I will accept it. I have no other reasons.
What? No. The reason though is in the novelization.
Is it? Because I don't remember it. Oh my goodness.
So the first time they go back to the Resistance base, after Rey gets taken, that's when BB-8 rolls into R2. And in the novelization, there's a light that turns on in R2 where he's basically processing and basically because he has all these years of all these memories and all this stuff. And when they come back is when he's finished going through that.
Ooh, that's
Thank
cool.
you, because I didn't remember that, so thank you.
Yeah, definitely not made clear in the films, but that is in the novelization that was released along with the movie by Alan Dean Foster, I believe.
Yes, it was.
But yeah, I mean, any more thoughts on that, or seeing Luke for the first time after, what was it, 35 years at that point, 37 years?
So I, like I said at the beginning, I like Star Wars. I wasn't like into Star Wars until like a year and a half ago. But I remember watching The Force Awakens in theaters because of that Jedi steps scene. That music just like sunk into my soul, and I just like remember that clearly. I thought it just did such a good leaving the door open for The Last Jedi for like it could be anything coming up with Luke. Like we know he hid away, but don't really know much else. So I thought that was really, really cool to have such kind of a wide open door. And Ray's just standing there like, please take this, please take this. The other thing I will say really quick, that I see the island when Kylo was interrogating her. Was it that island, or was it just an island?
Yeah, it was. I'm pretty sure it was Achto that she was having visions of it in her dreams. Yeah.
I mean, she had never seen an island at that point. So
Right.
Yeah.
I just love how they left us on a literal cliffhanger. And I remember the anticipation for those 2 years in between, because I needed to know what happened next. And yeah, I thought that was a really good way to end it.
There's something in that moment that's so important to me in understanding Rey's character. She ends the movie holding out the saber for Luke. Even though she's fought Kylo Ren and won, she is still holding out the saber for a hero. She's not accepted that she is this hero that's going to lead everybody. And then The Last Jedi, she's trying to pull him to be the hero still. And then when he won't, she switches gears and is like, okay, well, then Ben's going to be the hero because I believe that that's what's going to happen. And it's not until The Rise of Skywalker that she finally accepts that she is the hero that's going to save everybody and that that's her purpose. And I saw, like, not to like go too far ahead, but like I'd seen so many people like complain that it's like, she's already earned the saber. Why is she saying I will earn your brother's saber? But that's how she thinks. She doesn't believe that she is this hero yet, and that she is like, we know that she's earned the saber, that she's done all these amazing things and everything, but she has so much self-doubt like throughout the trilogy, and like growing and realizing that this is who she is. And so it ends with her, even though she has done all these amazing things, being like, this is the real hero. I have finally found him and I can pass on the mantle to him. But ultimately that's not what's going to happen. Yeah.
It's not what's going to happen, and it's funny because there are so many theories going around, and this is a case where I was right on all of them, because not because I'm special, but because they told us in The Force Awakens. They straight up told us, like, Luke had a Jedi school, one of his students ruined it, he felt responsible, so he walked away. So I'm like, yeah, he's not going to take it because we've already established that, right? But I don't know. People looked at me like I was crazy. It happens though. But yeah, let's talk characters. First, I'm going to start with Finn. Your guys' thoughts on Finn's introduction and journey in this one?
I really liked Finn. The idea of having a defective stormtrooper was fascinating, I thought. And I thought the execution in this movie was really well done. It also crossed my mind. I don't know if it was during this movie or when it happened, but it crossed my mind for a moment. I was like, oh, what if Finn's a double agent? What if he defected on purpose for the First Order to like infiltrate the Resistance? I thought that would have been something cool to see. But yeah, Finn was, I really enjoyed Finn in this one. I thought his story was really cool, and seeing that he doesn't really care about much, except he knows how dangerous the First Order is, and he knows how ruthless the First Order is, and he needs to get away. And that's what he feels like until he meets Rey. And then you can see the connection he has for Rey and how much he cares about Rey, and then literally goes back to Starkiller Base just to get her out of there and everything. And then that his story in The Last Jedi too is I mean, he's not part of the Resistance. He's literally trying to run away, but then by the end, you know, he kind of comes around. And I thought Finn was really interesting.
I think Finn is so wholesome. I love how, like, he is just, sometimes he feels like the character that's so easy for us to see through, because he's just so new to everything with the Resistance, and he's just so in like an awe sort of way. And I really love him for that. And I do love when he goes back for Rey on Starkiller Base, and they have that moment of, like, he's the first person who came back for her, that she waited her whole life for somebody to come back for her, and he did. And they have, like, that really beautiful moment and connection. And I even if they were not, like, a romantic love, they loved each other. Like, they, like, that, for me, they're such a good representation of what true, like, friendship, platonic, like, truly, like, I will love you no matter what friendship is. And I adore them so much.
Yeah. And so at the beginning, it could have gone either way.
It could have, yeah.
But I do appreciate it for what it was, because in my own personal life, I have a lot of friends that are girls, and some of them started out as that and turned into something else. And it's not because I'm a simp. No, not at all. But the way that I don't know. I feel like we gloss over the fact that the trope of toxic masculinity negatively affects men. I'm not going to say just as much, but it's pretty bad, to the point where men cannot be open with each other about certain things. And the feeling is, oh, you can only talk about this stuff with a girl, but only if she's your girlfriend. So now you have a bunch of guys who only date girls when really they need a therapist. So I don't know. That's just kind of funny for me. But sorry, Haley, any Finn thoughts?
I love Finn. I want more Finn content. I know it's touched on, like, both in this movie, but, like, definitely in The Rise of Skywalker, but his Force connection. I want to see that, like, more and more. Like, I love the Lego holiday special, because we actually saw them training together. It's so special to have a fair character like Finn, because, like, he made a really hard decision. Like, he was programmed since birth to, like, kill. And he decided to leave everyone he's ever known, and, like, the only organization he's ever been a part of, and, like, made the right choice, and got wrapped up in this whole mess, and seemed like a good thing.
All right. And then, all right, we'll jump to Poe. Thoughts on Poe? We'll start with Kevin, actually.
I really like Poe. Poe is the hotshot pilot that if I was in Star Wars, I want to fly in his squadron. I've always had, and I'm a car guy. You know, I enjoy driving a little over the speed limit from time to time.
I used to be.
Yeah,
it got expensive.
No, yeah, I feel that. I like going fast, and I like adrenaline, and that's why I've always kind of really enjoyed pilots throughout all eras of Star Wars, and seeing Poe be on one of the main characters being this hotshot ace pilot was just really cool to see. And he had a lot of great moments in this one that like I said before, that one scene where he takes out 13 people in that short matter of time was so cool. And just he's the first main character you see in the movie. He was on that mission to get the map from Lord Santeca, which The novel Before the Awakening, if anybody hasn't read it, I definitely recommend. That tells the stories of Finn, Poe, and Ray and what they were up to right before The Force Awakens. It provides a lot of great insight, but I thought Poe's story was really interesting because he was with the New Republic, but then kind of got recruited by Leia and joined the Resistance and went on this crazy like heist mission right before The Force Awakens. And he had a lot of good, cool moments in this movie, but it's interesting too because he's absent for a good chunk of the film. You kind of think he's dead almost until he comes back and saves the day with the rest of the Resistance. I don't know. I really enjoyed Poe.
The novelization also covers what happens to Poe when he crash lands, which is interesting. And I will also recommend Poe Dameron Free Fall to you, Kev, because that is
that the comic or is that a novel?
I don't know if they made a comic, but it is a novel. And
the Poe. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, the Poe comic is by Charles Soule, and that one's a really good run. Yeah,
I need to
too. The whole egg.
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say I need to read the comic because it's got my boy Snap Wexley in there.
It does.
And I couldn't not be on this podcast and not bring up Snap Wexley at least once. So I had to get that in there.
When I did my TikTok on Mr. Bones, I had several comments that said the same thing word for word. And it was, I would yeet myself into the sun for Mr. Bones.
I love Mr. Bones. I love him so much.
That is accurate.
Yeah.
How about you, Haley? Poe Dameron thoughts?
Poe is just so much fun. Like, he is just this light of the sequels. Like, he just so funny, like so impulsive, but like you root for him the whole time. Like, absolutely great. One small moment, like super, super small moment that I didn't realize until like my 10th time watching Force Awakens. When Rey's eating dinner, she sees a ship fly off. And I totally just put it together that it was probably Poe's ship. Because how else would he get off the planet? Like, I thought that was super tiny, but like significant. But yeah, his character arc was awesome.
Awesome. I love it. And Alex?
Poe is not a character that like, I like him. I don't mean this in any like bad way. He's just not like a character that I like super connected with. But that said, I really enjoy him. Like, I think he's fun. We've talked about that shot where he gets all those TIE fighters, and the cinematography in that moment is just so good because you're like down with Finn watching it happen. And like, I think that's so much fun. Over the course of the sequels, I grew not to like him as much.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I do like him. Like, I don't like the way he goes with Holdo, but like, I really do like him in this movie. I think he's fun. And because we talked about that he was missing for a chunk of the movie, that there's like the interesting reason that happened is that originally they were just going to kill Poe's character.
Yeah, he was going to die at the beginning.
Yeah, and J.J. Abrams liked Oscar Isaac so much and liked his character so much that they're like, let's keep him. And I agree with that because even if I don't super relate to him, he's an important character in the trilogy, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Is he discount Han Solo?
No, I think he's different. He's very different.
It's so I hear a lot. Yes, he absolutely falls under the same archetype, but like the way I see it is like both Incredible Hulk and Drax fall under the same archetype of the strong guy of the crew. They are not the same character. You know what I mean? Like the crews are of. If you watch heist movies or cop movies or anything else, there's always the same archetype of any group. Just because someone falls into this archetype doesn't mean they're emulating someone else from a different one. That's kind of my thing. All right, Kylo Ren thoughts overall, and I'm going to Haley first.
Ooh. Yes, Kylo, I love that you can see Ben from the beginning. Like, it's so powerful. You see, like, he's not your typical villain. Like, he, like, the first scene you see him in just absolutely going wild. And, like, this is a very dangerous character. But then you see, wait, this is not Vader. This is definitely something different and something new. And then, let's see, Ben's redemption, like, I know it's not The Force Awakens, but like, that was like crying in the theater. Like, that was so good, so good. And the scene, I'm totally jumping back and forth, I'm sorry, but with Kylo and Han, like, it's so powerful. Like, you just see the emotion on his face and in his voice, and he thinks he's making the right decision for his future, and then, like, it's just not. Obviously rooting for Han not to die because the audience, but like, there's so much more as a character that like comes from Han's death, and it was just awesome. Yeah, and also, like, it's never too late to make things right. Like, I think that's a big part of his story, because he's like, oh, it's too late, and it's like, no, it's you can start now.
And to me, that's the biggest message of Star Wars, is that your past does not define you. Now, doing the right thing now does not absolve you of all the wrong stuff you've did before. But the whole purpose is, this is not Thelma and Louise. You don't have to go over that cliff. So, like, calm down. I'm going to throw you a monkey wrench, and then everyone else can also factor it in when they talk about Kylo Ren. But there's a handsome man named Marelius Wolf, and he says, I think the fact that Kylo can be seen as an emo teen throwing a tantrum is also part of that toxic masculinity in a different way. And I'm curious if you have any further thoughts on that, but everyone else can also factor that in once I get to you.
Love me some emo boys. Love me some emo boys. But I think that's why I relate to him so much. Like, it just, every emotion is just like, oh, I get that. Like, I get that. Like, not to the extent, obviously, because I'm not murderous, but just so great. So great. We needed an emo in Star Wars.
I agree with that fully, because I grew up full on Midwest emo, and I was in a band. I mean, we started out as a ska band, but we turned emo pretty quick. Yes, I know how to play Beauty and the Breakdown acoustic. Yeah, it's nice to feel represented.
Right.
But your thoughts, Alex?
Are you still able to hold on a second? There you go. Can you still hear me? Because my headphones are deciding that they don't want to work very well right now. So as long as you can hear me,
I can hear you.
Good.
It's not quite as good, but I can still
hold
hear
on.
you.
Let me see if better. Off. Can you hear me better, or let's put them back in? All right.
Yeah, I leave them in. You're good.
Okay, so especially because I know what he's talking about, because that's my husband. Kylo Ren is a character who has been through a lot of trauma. We know from the novelization of The Force Awakens that Snoke has been a part of his life since he was in the womb. Like, he's been talking to him since he was in the womb. He's been groomed. He's been manipulated to the point that he's at right now. And it's very easy to write off his tantrums as being just funny, or writing off him crying as, oh, he's just the emo boy that shops at Hot Topic. But in a way, when you're not looking further into it, and you're not, it reads into how we treat mental health for males, especially in this country, that we will write it off often as, oh, men aren't allowed to cry, or men aren't allowed to have these emotions and such. And like, his tantrums are a huge indication of like PTSD. And like, how he doesn't understand how to handle rage. He has I'm like jumping forward now, but like when he's talking to like Ray in the throne room, he's actually attempting
to have some sort of connection with her, and he has no way of giving a healthy sort of expression of love. It is not.
Yeah.
It's not healthy.
Hey,
at
girl,
all.
I just want you to know that you're nothing.
You're nothing.
No one. You have no place in the story, but not to me.
But not to me. That somehow makes it better. No,
with Kylo
it's like
101.
he's really.
He learned how to
trying.
flirt from Snoke.
Right.
That's what happens.
It's an honest attempt. Like it's really an honest moment from him, but he has no way of healthily expressing who he is at all because it's happened since he was a baby. And I love his character so much. I think he's the deepest Star Wars character that exists. Like there's so many layers to him. And like, especially if I'm just looking at like the Force Awakens, as I said, we have those tantrums. We have, we talked about him with the blaster bolt and everything. And one of the interesting moments that we didn't bring up with his situation with Hux is that he is not present during Hux's speech. And that is so important. He's not there when they're firing the weapon. He is off on his own, watching the weapon be fired alone. And that's expanded upon in the novel that he didn't want the weapon to fire. He actually tries to stand up to Snoke and be like, hey, I don't know if this is the best idea. And he gets shot down. And obviously because, he's been groomed to this point, he doesn't really fight it. But I've had so many people argue with me. It was like, he caused the system destruction. I'm like, no, he didn't even want it to happen. Sure, he is complicit in it because he doesn't exactly stop it. But that's a Hux thing. And it's part of their tension with each other.
Which is so much more tragic because the audio that plays when Luke is looking into his mind is that audio. It's the same audio clip from the destruction of the Hosnium system. Oh, man.
He's such a good and layered character. And you have him offering to train Rey for how would Snoke have agreed to that? That's completely off on his own. He's like, I'm gonna be your teacher. And I don't think Snoke would have been on board with that one. So that would have been an interesting thing.
But she's the first person he's had a connection with.
Right. Even if it's this forced, not real connection at this point, it's he's just clinging on to this. We're like each other. We're the same person. I'm gonna cling on to this, and it's just fascinating. I could go on way too long about him.
That's really interesting. No, I'm just I'm mesmerized too, and now I'm mad because I did a Kylo Ren episode and I didn't have you on it. I'm gonna have to do another one with you, SoCal costumes, and two Alexes. Is that too many?
Oh my! Me and Alex Van talk about Kylo way too often.
But your thoughts on Kylo Ren, Kevin?
Yeah, I thought my fascination with Kylo began before the movie even came out, when you see him ignite that lightsaber in that teaser trailer for the first time. And I remember a long time ago, when that was the most divisive thing about Star Wars was Kylo Ren's lightsaber. And that was the thing people were arguing about the most. So going into The Force Awakens, I had a very high expectation to like this character. Little did I know he would become my favorite character in all of Star Wars. Ever since The Force Awakens, I was like, he is so complex that the casual viewer or somebody who just casually watches the movie might not pick up on it. But if you take the time to dig a little deeper into his character, he is so interesting. And like I mentioned earlier, he's presented as your stereotypical big bad villain. But then the first time he has a temper tantrum, you're like, wait a minute. This is not how a big bad villain is supposed to react to a minor inconvenience. This is not how Darth Vader would react to this situation. And you see that he's different, and he's got these different things about him. And then when he takes off his mask, he's not deformed. He's not, it's Adam Driver. He's this young, and Kylo Ren is this young kid, but he's vulnerable to his emotions, and he struggles with his feelings, and he has this constant struggle between light and dark, and that drives his character. And he's kind of trapped in a spot where he doesn't necessarily want to be. He's been groomed and gaslighted by Snoke all these years, and reading the Rise of Kylo Ren comic provides so much more insight to that, and it's just fascinating. Kylo Ren is by far, to me, the most interesting character in Star Star Wars. And there's so much depth, and he's got so many complexities, and especially The Last Jedi. I think he absolutely thrives in The Last Jedi. His and Rey's storyline is by far my favorite part about Star Wars. Him and Rey are my top two favorite characters in Star Wars, followed by Boba Fett and Snap Wexley, of course. But I absolutely love Kylo and Rey's story, and I also am a unapologetic Reylo. Ever since The Last Jedi, you gotta love a good enemies to lovers trope.
Yeah, it's the best. I love that trope so much.
You gotta love it. Yeah. So and just I love Kylo so much. I was heartbroken when he died in Rise of Skywalker, but. That's a whole
spoilers.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Rise of Skywalker, Kylo Ren, Ben Solo is a whole different discussion. But yeah, I absolutely love Kylo Ren. I got him on my shirt. I'm wearing my Force Awakens shirt that got him on it. I got a poster. I got the helmet right next to me. I got a lot of Kylo.
Oh, I love her race staff. I don't even notice that. No.
Yeah, I was grabbing my.
There we go. That's awesome.
Nice.
Beginning of quarantine, I ordered a Darth Vader shirt off Etsy. I was very excited. It came in as a Kylo shirt, and I was like, I'm not mad about this at all. Like, that it's not my most worn shirt. I'm like, you know what? Decisions were made, and I'm happy.
For me, Kylo Ren has a special place in my heart because Kylo Ren is my sister. It's a weird way to explain it, but my older sister is love you, Brittany. But my older sister is Kylo Ren. I don't even know how to explain it further than that, but. You know, like you look at my family with, you know, we had loving parents, and she's the oldest. She was given everything, like just a lot of stuff. You know, in high school, like our house had 2 master bedroom suites, like with bathroom. That's what she got. They bought her like the Toyota 4Runner that she wanted. She was the guitarist in my band. You know. She had her Les Paul Studio Edition, and like we had all the stuff. We had really nice stuff, you know what I mean? But all she saw was the expectations that were being placed on her, and that's what Kylo Ren saw. Is he was had to have the legacy of this princess mom, and his dad being a famous general / famous smuggler / famous racer. His uncle saved the galaxy. He was named after Obi-Wan Kenobi. He doesn't even know Obi-Wan Kenobi. But it's another legacy, and he's just like, everyone is using me as a legacy. No one sees me as a person. So I don't know. He hits different for me because he's my sister, who at this point in time struggles with drugs and like a bunch of stuff. She even lived with me for a short period of time. It didn't work out because of those other reasons. Anyways,
I understand.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just so relate to that. Like, also the story of your sister. Like, I'm the oldest sibling. Like, my parents are like very successful in their own right. Like, I just always felt like the expectation, and like that scene with Han, I would just like cry because like I could feel my actions just killing them, and like feeling that intense regret, and like also like this is the thing I have to do, but like maybe I shouldn't be doing it. Like it was a lot. It was really good.
Yeah, I relate in like a similar way that like my husband is Kylo. Like it's, and I won't go too deep into it because you know like that's his stuff to tell. But like
Marcus,
definitely
tell us in chat.
No. But like that was his character that he clung on to. like so hard. And then maybe that also like was why I was like Reylo since 2015. But like but yeah, no, it was a character that he related to in a way that I've never seen him relate to a character. I've never seen him leave a movie sobbing before, and he left The Last Jedi sobbing because they didn't save Ben. And I've never seen that in my husband. And so to know that this character touches people who have been through like hell in their own ways, like it's so important. It's so important. I think he's a character that's just is really good for people who have been through certain things.
And I think that's the greatest thing that Star Wars has brought to the galaxy. And I think that's why it's stuck around. No other franchise is like this. No other franchise is like this, but this latest Star Wars is meant for people to grow up with now. It's meant to see what young people have been going through since the last one and give us a story on those people, on those actions, on not knowing what your place in the universe is, because you don't have those people. You need to find your own family. You've been left behind. Maybe you get shunned by your family, or maybe you're adopted, or maybe, so many different things. Or someone like Kylo Ren, who you're given everything, but not the right way, or not, or you're Finn, where you belong to an organization and what they're doing is wrong and you can't get on board with it. Like, and I think that's like the most powerful thing that Star Wars has been giving to everyone. That's why each iteration needs to go for the next generation. And if it ever stops that formula, that's when it dies. Not when it, you know what I mean? Like, if you're not catering to people who were fans in 1977, that's not what kills it. It's when you're not taking care of the people that are going to grow up with it today, just like they grew up with it then.
Like, I'm so glad girls have a Rey to look up to now. Like, I was looking up to like Disney princesses, which were great, but like having a powerful character who like knows right and wrong and then like has to struggle with that, like that is so important.
I got made fun of when I was little of when we play Star Wars at school, and I'm like, I'm Luke Skywalker, and they're like, no, you're not. You can be Lando, or you can be Chewbacca. And they're like, okay, I'm Vader. That's what I would do. And that's why, even though it doesn't quite match my personality, I'm usually Darth on most things, because that's how I grew up. But all right, so we got Kylo Ren out of the way. Let's talk Rey. I can't remember who I started with last time, but you guys switched positions, so I'm just gonna start with Kev.
Yeah. So Rey is my second favorite character in Star Wars, and I think a big reason of that is because I almost see Kylo and Rey as one and the same. You really can't think of one without thinking of the other. They're so interconnected, literally with the Force dyad, and like I said before, their story is by far my favorite part about Star Wars. But I can kind of relate to Rey in a way. She's very compassionate, and you see that throughout all the films. And I like to think of myself as a pretty compassionate person, and I know the value of friendship, kind of like Rey does with how she has Finn and Poe and the Rise of Skywalker, and how much you see that her friends mean to her. I've had a very close group of friends my entire life, and I know the value of friendship, and I know how important, how they're basically family. And another thing too, it's the whole Rey Skywalker thing, but literally it's her found family, but that's a different discussion. And I she's independent. I've always kind of been independent in my life, and I have to get stuff done for myself, and I have to work for myself, and if I want something, I have to go out and get it. And Rey's got that independence as well, and I think that's a big reason why I like her so much, is because I see a lot of myself in her. And I just think she's such an interesting character and so undeserving of all the hate that she gets. You can't go on TikTok without seeing Ray just get an enormous amount of hate, and it's so sad to see. You're dead right. And there's this weird like thought of, oh, because I don't relate to this character, they're a bad character. And you're like, you don't have to relate to every main character ever. Otherwise, we would be seeing the same exact movie over and over again forever, and nobody wants that. But Alex, what were your thoughts on Ray?
Ray's my favorite character, by far. Something I love about her is how optimistic she is and how much hope she has. It's something that, like, I think puts her apart from some of the other ladies in Star Wars. Not that they're bad or anything, but it's why I relate to her personally. Is like Jyn has been through somewhat similar situations, but she has a very like cynical view on the galaxy, whereas Ray truly just believes in things. Like, she believes her parents are going to come back. She believes in good in the galaxy, like regardless of the fact that she's lived a life that is horrible. Like, she's lived completely alone, fighting every single day for food. And yet she just has such compassion and kindness. And the fact that she could go through so much and still be this person, I think is so inspiring. And that's why I love her so much. And I also love, not to go too far like ahead in the sequels with her character, but I love that even though she's compassionate to people and she can see the good in people, she doesn't ever compromise herself. Ever. She doesn't put her friends in danger in order to be kind to somebody. Like, she will always do what is right, even if it's in the consequence of her own emotions and feelings. And I really admire her for that.
Yeah.
And going to what you were saying, Kevin, about like being on TikTok with Ray, it's hard. I cosplay Ray on TikTok and I get so many comments. And like, I'll be doing like a lip syncing video that's nothing to do with anything, and people are like, Ray is terrible. And I'm like, okay, just keep scrolling. Like, what? It's like, what?
And just on TikTok too, if you see a video about Ahsoka, there's always that one person in the comment section that's like, oh, by far a better character than Ray. It's like the video had nothing to do with Ray.
Nothing.
Like,
how many hours of the day do you think about Ray? Like, if you
she lives in their head rent free.
Rent free.
But
and you can't
I want to add
compare.
one thing. I got to add something that Yido Gaming said in the chat. He says, I feel like so many writers try to write masculine females instead of bracing their femininity, which I think Ray does beautifully. So if you want to incorporate that into what you're continuing to say, and then Kev, I'll wrap back around to you if you want to add on to that as well. But
yeah, I will agree with that. But she definitely is feminine in the way that she's so compassionate and caring and motherly, even sometimes to people, that she's always taking care of them. And then even more so, I don't understand the idea that in order to be a strong female, you cannot have a romantic interest. Like, it's like, I'm sorry, when I got married, did I suddenly not become a strong female? I had a kid and I'm no longer strong. Okay, moving on. But like, it's weird.
You
So
have to
like,
turn
the
in the
fact
card.
that yeah, right. Sorry, here you go. But the fact that she's able to, and again, I was saying that she can be compassionate, but doesn't like compromise herself. She has a romantic interest, but she never stops being a strong character in order to have that romantic interest. In fact, never even gives into said romantic interest until he fixes himself. She doesn't fix him. He gets along with the program. And so I think that that's so important, that she's just so like, she is both strong and feminine at the same time. It's like she can be really soft, but she's not going to compromise her goals for you. And I just really love that about her character.
And the scene where she's crying, but it's still like standing strong and doing the thing. It's like there's nothing wrong with feeling the feeling, but she's still doing the thing. Like, I don't know, I really appreciate it. But your thoughts on it, Corellia Coffee?
Yeah. Like, again, to the facial expressions, like, you see so much, and like, I don't know if I'm pretty sure this is a kind of general experience for a lot of girls, but like you can't lay all your cards on the table. Like you have to like be coy in order to be respected. And so a lot of her like big moments are silent, and it's just her face working through something. And so it's so important. And like, I just love Ray so much. Yeah. And she's always so determined to follow her gut. Like from the very beginning, she's good at what she does, even like scrapping around on Jakku. In the novelization, Unkar Plutt like offers her money for the droid, and she's like, how about 10 or 100 instead of 60, like tries to one up him. And so she'll like fight for what she wants. And so much of her character development comes when she doesn't trust herself, and like doesn't really know what she is. And so it like her motivations kind of stay the same, or like her drive kind of stays the same, but her everything else changes so drastically that she has to learn to keep up. And she's just such a great character for us to look up to.
Yeah, I didn't see, and I see a lot of people now. I'm not a woman, and I do not identify as a woman, which means I lack both the hardware and the software to speak freely on the subject. However, I have had it pointed out to me that a lot of her struggle is to realize that she's the one that needs to take care of this, and she's constantly looking for others, to these other guys to like, hey, you're supposed to step up to the plate, right? Like you're supposed to do this, right? Like, and then she's the one that has to do it. She does it beautifully, but it's the courage to find that strength. And I don't think I'm explaining this well, but do any of you guys want to add on or anything to it?
I honestly think you did a good job with that. Like, I think that was good. And it was back to what I was saying before with like the handing off of the lightsaber, that she's always looking for somebody else to take it forward because she's never had to be the hero before. And like, I just want to add on, like, I think it's really important, especially for like older, more mature men in the Star Wars community, to stop using the word Mary Sue. Stop teaching that to the younger generation of men.
It's used wrong 90% of the time.
Absolutely.
It is. It may have started in a place where it was about a character from a fan fiction and there's the word Gary Sue, but it is almost 100% used in a sexist way now. It's not used in the way that it should be, and it's now rooted in sexism.
And a lot of people... Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go, Kevin. You're good.
I was going to say, a lot of people that call Rey a Mary Sue, they all have the same arguments of why, or like, oh, how is she able to fly the Falcon, or how did she beat Kylo? All the answers of those questions are there. You literally just have to put any amount of critical thinking or just think about it. She had fighting experience. We see her in the movie literally use a bow staff. She knows how to take care of herself, and staff skills.
But she didn't train.
Right, exactly.
And you're like, no,
exactly.
but she fought people. Like,
right.
You train to learn how to fight people. She fought people.
Right.
Negating the training
and
to learn how to fight people. Yes.
Yeah. And staff skills transfer to lightsaber skills. They're not entirely that different. And just the answers to their criticisms about why Rey or Mary Sue are there, but they don't see them. And it drives me nuts sometimes.
I've seen people say that like she knows more about the Falcon than Han Solo does. I'm like, no, she doesn't. She just knows what Unkar Plutt added to the Falcon because she helped do it. It has nothing to do with she knows the ship better than he does. And all the answers are there. It's just, I think, unfortunately, we live in a time period where there's so many angry YouTubers that just say the same thing over and over again. And the younger generation tends to just watch that and not put their own critical work into it, and you end up with a bunch of people who think the exact same thing, and it's like, wait a minute, stop.
I love hearing J.Kev Parker talk about it, because J.Kev Parker's wife is a martial arts expert. He doesn't say it in his videos. His wife is a martial arts expert, and his kids train in martial arts, train other people in martial arts, and you're like, he know, but he doesn't name drop them. But I don't know, it just makes me laugh.
Another thing too, I just want to say really quick: if Rey was a man, she would not get nearly as much hate.
No,
that's a huge reason of why, and that's so sad.
It is. We accept a 9-year-old boy suddenly being able to fly a starship. He's never flown a starship before, and destroying stuff. And we just accept it because he's the chosen one, and we've been told that. And it's, I don't know how we can accept that, but we can't accept a woman who's saying, hey, I know how to do this, actually knows how to do it. It's very strange.
I just wonder, like, how I'm watching the same movie as some of these people, because I'm like, there's just, they lay it out for you so easily, and like the same thing has happened before. Like, you meet a character and all of a sudden, oh wow, they can do something very cool. Why are we picking it apart and saying they can't when they very obviously can?
It happened. And then sorry, gaming also brings up my favorite arc, man. Oh no. I like Ahsoka, so that can't be it. And you're like, can you like? It hurts. It physically hurts me to, because at this point, I get to talk to thousands of Star Wars fans on a daily basis and talk about what they love. And each person loves something unique and one of a kind. And that's why I love talking to you, finding people like you guys who all love this thing. And you guys are all saying something different. Everyone who hates it, they all watch the same 5 YouTube videos and they all say the exact same thing, word for word. Like, people ask me, oh, how do you respond to all of these people? I responded to one of them and I saved it to a clipboard. If you look at my videos, it's the same, because the complaint is exactly the same, word for word. So it's hilarious to me, but
I think it's also sorry,
go
go ahead, Kevin. Okay, I think it's also really easy to forget when we're in this community on TikTok or podcasting or cosplay and everything. The general casual Star Wars fan is not the people you're talking to online. They do not spend their time talking about Star Wars online. I do trooping with the Rebel Legion and 501st, and I see these fans that love Star Wars but are not going to spend their time online talking about it. These children love Ray and Kylo. They love them. Like, I can't tell you the number of like you go to these events and there's people lining up to take pictures with you. And when people are telling you online that like the sequels are universally hated, I'm like, I just know that's not true. Because I've seen it. Yeah.
And that's my exact experience now that I get to talk to thousands of people and finding out how many of them are like, I love these things, but I don't post about them because of how toxic people are. And I think about myself, I loved Star Wars, but I didn't talk about it because of how toxic people were to me. Because I thought at one point I was the only person on the planet that enjoyed the sequels. I literally thought no one on Earth but me likes these movies because of the amount of hate that people are telling me. And now that's not true at all. And
there are funny. More of us, Chaco. There are more of us.
Exactly. And I get to hear people like Victoria Vader talk about how these little children come to her studio to learn dance, and they're arguing about Star Wars. It's like little girls. That's so cool to me. You know, I don't know.
I think the toxic side of the fandom is definitely a loud minority.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the negativity is speaks loudly, but there are more. They're just a small part of the fandom that's very loud and annoying. But there are definitely there's more positivity than negativity, I think.
Yeah, and that's actually what has. I mean, that's why we're here. That's what's encouraged me to continue forward, because there are new fans each and every day. I talk to people where they're like, I always thought Star Wars was boring, but and then I played Jedi Fallen Order, and then I watched the movies, and now I like it. And I realized that every single new project that comes up, it's hard to believe that not everyone fell in love with it when I did as a kid. But that's why that's literally my first question to everyone is, how did you find it? Where did you guys get started? Because you find out, oh, no one fell in love with it when I did. Or like a really small minority did. I just assume we're all the same, but we're not. It's really interesting. But you really get to feel that, especially with all these new projects that are coming down the pipeline, those are going to be the very first introductions to Star Wars to a whole lot of new people. And so I want to make sure that they come into a nice environment and don't have to just deal with people who, you wanted to see Luke at his peak. He had a peak, we just didn't see it, and that's okay. Like, breathe. So yeah, that's what I'm excited about. I'm curious on one thing though. One thing I think it was a big missed opportunity is politics. Now, we didn't get to understand the politics that we're going behind. Now, if anyone has not read Bloodline by Claudia Gray, read that book.
That's next on my list.
It's so good.
I recommended it to Jedi_Starkiller, and he was like, yeah, I read that in 3 days. I literally couldn't put the book down. So yeah, definitely read that, because that'll let you know the political scene. I'm not opposed to it not being there, because this was Rey's story and it doesn't apply to Rey. It was in the prequels, because the prequels were actually Obi-Wan Kenobi's story, really. But it takes place on Coruscant, in the middle of this whole political thing. Obviously, it's going to be in there. They weren't really present in the original trilogy because it was not relevant to the story that was being told. But your guys' thoughts on politics and the overall state of the galaxy for the sequel trilogy?
So I was a political science major, so politics is like what I just consume every single day. Absolutely love it. Padme is probably my favorite character, and like that's the one I can like nail down and say like, no, she's my favorite, just because she is such a good, powerful politician. Like, love her. So I wish we got some politics in the sequels. But again, like you said, totally understand why we didn't. I think it would be a really cool short story, or like if they could put it in any other kind of media, just so we get something. Because Bloodline's amazing, but that was 15 years. Like it was.
No, that was 6 years before The Force Awakens.
Was it only 6? Wow. Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. Never mind then. That was so cool. I got the impression Ben was younger. But looking back, I'm like, no, he was definitely with Luke at that time. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she didn't get to tell him about Vader. Oh, it hurts. But I can talk about Bloodlines forever because it was incredible.
Same.
Claudia Gray, if you're watching this, I'm going to need you to write a script for a Star Wars movie, and I need a book of you telling me the story of Obi-Wan and Satine. That's what I need, is like them going to Mandalore, Obi-Wan is still with Qui-Gon. They have to like separate, and Obi-Wan is forced, super strict Obi-Wan is forced to go on this mission with Satine and see what happens. Claudia Gray, make that happen. And anyways, sorry. Continue about the politics in the sequel.
Someone else wants to speak that.
I'll go ahead. What I care about, like if I'm being 100% upfront honest, I care about the Jedi and the Force. So like, in retrospect, I could be like, yeah, it would have been nice to know a little bit more about it, but I did not even notice that it was missing when I watched it. It's just not personally my thing to miss. But I do know that they had some deleted scenes talking with somebody in the New Republic, which would have been interesting and maybe filled in a little bit of the extra gaps of what was going on there. But it wasn't personally my focus of this is something that was missing.
And that's fair. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Off of that, like Star Wars is a galaxy. Like it has so many different aspects, and I love that different people find different things. Like I would never play the video games because that's just not my thing. But would I read novel upon novel about the politics of Star Wars? Absolutely. Like Queen's Shadow, Queen's Peril were like my favorite books because it went so deep. And yeah.
I'm kind of mad I didn't get to talk to you about those, but I had like 4 other girls on that podcast, and I was like, okay, no, this might be too many. Excellent books, but I will likely be coming back to you for Leia, Princess of Alderaan, because I have not covered that one yet. Yeah, so and that's the hard part, and it's another thing I hear is like, oh well, you shouldn't have to read outside material, and you're like, no, but it's not necessary to the story that is being told. And as much as there are things that I would like to know personally, is it necessary for this specific story? It might not be. And the thing that I always try to, and I get, people in my comments, a lot of times it's young people, so I try to ask, like, hey, what assumptions are you making here? And I think that's one of the big problems with this particular film, is that it had a lot of similarities to A New Hope. And because of the similarities, people made assumptions or one-to-one. Okay, so the First Order is the Empire. First Order is not the Empire. They're not in charge of the galaxy. They're really small. They're out in the far rim. Nobody knows that they exist. Kylo Ren is not the next Vader, but he would like to someday be. Rey is not Luke. She does not want to leave her home. She wants to stay here and want to do her thing. Poe is not Han Solo. He's not a smuggler in general. He likes to fly. He wants to be a hero, and he wants to protect other people. And I don't know what they say about Finn, because Finn is not Princess Leia, I guess. He's a beautiful man, but
I've seen enough fan art on Tumblr comparing him to Princess Leia when they tried to like do the original like trilogy, and they just like put him in the dress, and I'm just like, oh boy, Tumblr.
I felt the cold touch of the dark side when you said that.
Sorry.
Kevin, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the really main reason why people might call Force Awakens is A New Hope 2.0 is because you have a 19-year-old protagonist who's on a desert planet and they blow up another Death Star. It's really not the same movie. Yeah, there's similar plot points and a similar story structure, but it's not a direct copy. That's just my thoughts on the matter. I did kind of enjoy how they when they were doing the briefing, they were like, I wish that was the case. This was the Death Star and this is Star Killer Base, and they kind of almost poking fun at the fact that yeah, it kind of is another Death Star. But yeah, I just it's not the same movie.
No, I think our good friend Brooke B. Dazzler in the chat is putting it perfectly when she says people immediately tried to put them all in boxes. So I think that's why the sequels and The Last Jedi were especially so jarring. If that's what you thought was going to happen, then yeah, it'd be jarring. But if you like let the story unfold, then no. No, probably not. I don't know, but I'm along for the ride and I enjoy it. And that's how my approach is to all storytelling, because I think that's how stories are told. You know what I mean? Like, a big one that was coming up recently is how come Bo-Katan wouldn't take the Darksaber? Has to be a plot hole. It's a plot hole. And you're like, no. I understand that she took the Darksaber once before like this, but she doesn't rule Mandalore right now. Maybe
Thing happened.
whatever happened is the reason she won't take it now. We have to let the story unfold. And so that's kind of where I come down on it. And I just love being on this journey. And I love being on this journey with you guys. This has been super fun. I don't know if you guys enjoy this as much as I do, but it's been
having a blast.
It's great. This is so much fun.
By far, my favorite part of the whole TikTok experience has been the people and being able to share our love and our passion for Star Wars with each other. It's by far the best part of my experience. So this is my favorite thing to do, is talk about Star Wars. So I'm loving every second of it.
I never thought for a second I would, make new friends as an adult. but be like, people are like, oh, TikTok, that's just an app for little girls dancing. And like, well, you're not wrong. But that's just have to tell it no. Do not want. I'm really happy. I get to like hang out with people like you guys, and that you guys are willing to talk to me. I know Haley was on the fence for a while, and I hope you feel better now.
Yes, this was so great. Thank you.
Okay, so to get wrapping up, I'm only going to go around 2 more times. So first is, any extra thoughts or tidbits or things that you think about this now that we have all 9 episodes, how this whole thing connects? And what other stories from this time period might you guys want? And I am going to Kev first.
Yeah. So just knowing how everything kind of played out with the sequels, I still love them. There are definitely some things I would change, and I have my criticisms. They're not perfect movies. They are by far not perfect movies, but that doesn't change the fact that I absolutely love them, and they are my favorite trilogy. And I think it's funny because I grew up with the prequels and everything, but Force Awakens was the first Star Wars movie that I saw in theaters. Well, actually, I don't know if that's true, because I don't know if I saw the Clone Wars movie in theaters or not. I would have been 8 years old at the time. So I don't even remember. I don't think I did. But anyway.
Oh my God, I was married then. I'm so old.
I saw it in theaters. I hated it. I thought it was the worst thing I had ever seen. Personally.
Yeah. Well, regardless, Force Awakens was the first Skywalker saga film I ever saw in theaters. And that was what re-sparked and reignited my love for Star Wars, which is why the sequels are my favorite. And I love the sequels, and I'm not afraid to say it. That's kind of how I built my following on TikTok, was being a positive voice for the sequels and being that on that sequel appreciation side of TikTok. And I just love talking about them and sharing my passion with them. I've seen Force Awakens start to finish probably around 50 times. I'm not even kidding. It is by far maybe even more than that, probably more than that. It's by far my favorite Star Wars movie. I think it's so rewatchable. It's got great action, great visuals. The soundtrack, I think it's in a top 3 for Star Wars soundtracks, with Rey's theme, Kylo's theme, March of the Resistance, Jedi Steps, and Finale. The music is so good.
Dang.
Funny. Yeah.
You're on something with that one. I gotta contemplate this. Sorry.
Yeah. I was talking about that on my live. I asked everybody that was in there, like, what's your favorite Star Wars score? And I can't pick between 3, 4, or 7. Those are my top 3. I can't pick one. But anyway, I love the humor in The Force Awakens. I thought all the jokes were very tastefully done. Just the thumbs up with BB-8, the that's not how the Force works. Just everything, especially Han Solo. Han Solo.
You're cold.
Yeah, you're cold. Listen, Solo. You just call me Solo. In case you should know, I'm a big deal in the Resistance. Here's another thing, big deal. Women always find out the truth. Han Solo was so funny in this movie, and this is by far my favorite Han Solo we've ever seen. He was just the humor in this movie was so well done, and I love it. And it's a fun movie from start to finish. Really, it's a fun adventure. Force Awakens is just such a fun movie. Also, I think, and we didn't talk about this earlier, I think The Force Awakens, being the first Star Wars movie in 10 years, it did such a good job at easing people back into Star Wars. With the old characters, they gave us something that we were familiar with, and I think that was the point. They wanted to present something that still seems like Star Wars and continue on with the old characters and that similar story structure. And I think they did a really good job at getting people back into Star Wars and kind of easing them back. And then I think that was the point. And then from there, they could go and do whatever.
A lot of people discount how right Disney was with their decisions of like, okay, we need, because I mean, we can. I've already found what George Lucas's treatment was, and it was going to be like starting with The Last Jedi, which would have been a bad move in my opinion. And I think they did a great job of starting with something to get new fans and old fans back in. And the sequel trilogy, I think a lot of people don't realize how many new fans joined at that point in time, because it was a lot. It was probably more than what was already there, to be quite honest. And then I see people saying, oh, well, Jon Favreau was able to appease old and new fans. And you're like, because the new fans were here already. But yeah, sorry, but yeah, okay, continue.
And then Star Wars projects I like to see. There's 3 of them that come to mind. The first one, and the one I want the most, is an animated show for the sequel trilogy that is basically the sequel trilogy Clone Wars, like the Clone Wars for the sequel trilogy. Because in my opinion, the Clone Wars made the prequel trilogy so much more enjoyable, and I don't think as many people would enjoy the prequels if the Clone Wars didn't exist. And seeing the characters kind of go through these adventures, and the Clone Wars, you really get to see Anakin's fall to the dark side, and you see all these little things that kind of have a snowball effect that ultimately push him to become Darth Vader. And if the sequel trilogy had their Clone Wars show, I think a lot of people would like them more. Whether that be, I haven't thought about like when it would take place. Obviously, Force Awakens and Last Jedi take place right back to back, so you can't really do anything there. And you have a year in between Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, but then Resistance Reborn book kind of covers that period, which I haven't read yet because I started reading and then it had spoilers for Aftermath, and then I put it down and I haven't touched it since. So since I haven't finished the book, I don't know if there's much you can do with a show in between that time period, or even not. Do it for post Rise of Skywalker. Show Rey training Finn to become a Jedi and kind of where they go from there, because their story's not over yet. They still got more stuff to do. And I would love to see anything like that. I think the sequels need their Clone Wars show to become more appreciated. But I guess another thing too is leading, kind of thinking more about that. What can the sequels do to get more people to appreciate them? If the Mandalorian somehow can able to kind of answer some of the unanswered questions before The Force Awakens, like the Rise of the First Order. I mean, we got that one episode in season 2 with the, I don't know if it was Snoke, but
it was definitely Snoke. I have a screenshot of it. It was Snoke. They're playing Snoke's theme. It is.
If they can build on that story and kind of show the rise of the First Order, or bridge the transition, but from the OT to the sequels, I think that could very well change a lot of people's minds about the sequel trilogy.
But here's the thing they need to do most of all is Disney, let whatever series it is marinate. Let it marinate, because season 1 of Clone Wars isn't great. It's not. We all love the Clone Wars. Season 1, season 2.
I've never seen the Clone Wars. I am so sorry.
And that's okay. But all I'm saying is,
yeah,
season 1 and 2, I get this comment constantly of like, I just started the Clone Wars and I don't like it.
That's me.
It gets good. It does.
I'm trying.
Good.
I'm getting through it.
And then I get that same comment for Rebels. Season 1, I don't like it. It gets great. And then the show Resistance came out, which it's funny to me because of any series, it got great the fastest. Season 2 was great. It's like surprisingly great to me. I did not like it. Took me 6 or 7 episodes to be interested in it at all.
I'm the same way. That first half of season 1 with the whole racing plot was kind of a pain to get through.
I have no idea what's going on. Like, why? What? But it gets going, and you're like, oh, that's why you set all this up? Oh my God.
Resistance really isn't as bad as people make it out to be. And it is an animated show set within the sequel trilogy, but I still think that it's not their Clone Wars. Resistance is not on the same level as Clone Wars or Rebels. And I think that the sequels need to find their Clone Wars.
It's not the Clone Wars for a very specific reason. The Force.
Mm-hmm.
People are into Star Wars because they want to know what the Jedi are doing, what's happening with the Force, and all this stuff. And again, Resistance got great faster than Rebels did, faster than Clone Wars did. People gave up on it sooner, which is weird. But like Clone Wars had a movie that I hated and 2 seasons that weren't great. And I love it still. You know what I mean? But anyways, we'll go to Alex.
If I can add one more thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead.
I had one more. Literally anything with Ben Solo. Young Ben Solo, I think, would be fantastic to show his training with Luke, and even I'd be fine with an adaptation of the Rise of Kylo Ren comic, because that's some good stories in there. I need more Ben Solo in my life, and I don't know what I'm going to do if I don't get that. So that's just me.
All right. And then I just checked what time it is. We're running a little bit long, but Kevin, where can we find you?
Yeah, so I'm on TikTok at Kev20_, and I also have my own Star Wars podcast I do. I was talking about that best friend I grew up on Star Wars with. Me and him have our own Star Wars podcast. Did I say podcast? It's a podcast. It's called Live at the Cantina. You can find us on YouTube, where we have video podcasts, and we're also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts for audio listeners.
Absolutely. Awesome. Love it. All right, and how about you, Alex?
Do you want me to just do where you can find me, or do my real fast of what I...
Whole thing.
Okay.
So we now have 9 episodes. So how does all of it tie in? Is there any projects you want to see? And then where can we find you? Because you're very delightful.
The 2 things I would say, like, that I'm disappointed in, like, how it all, like, tied in. Number 1 is how they left Finn's character. They could have done so much more with Finn's character. Please, why didn't we give him the Stormtrooper Rebellion that was in Trevorrow's script? I will never understand it. And I guess there's 3, because Rose's character getting dropped off also makes absolutely no sense to me.
We got a Slug as an engineer instead.
We have Klaus. What is he?
Which is literally the worst possible engine. Just leaving slime and stuff. He doesn't even have hands. What the hell?
I mean, like, this should be for a Rise of Skywalker episode, but you also gave me Beaumont Kin and didn't do anything with him. Why did you give me a Sith historian not to use him? But anyway, I love Rey Skywalker. I don't have an issue with Rey Palpatine, with her being a Palpatine. The problem is, it's so in my aesthetic of she was supposed to be the dark one who ends up being light. He was supposed to be the light one who ends up being dark. that I hate that it doesn't start from the beginning. That we do not have this like really cool story that could have like led up to it of like your heritage was to be dark, your heritage was to be light, but you're switched. That is such an interesting dynamic, and I wish I had more of it. And that's why I don't mind Rey Palpatine over Rey Nobody, even though I really love Rey Nobody. But I just want more of that story. So if you could give me more of that, like in a comic book, like in between like The Last Jedi and Tross, of her dealing more with the darkness inside of her, I would love that. But definitely going more, I want to see something for closure for the Ben Solo fans. Because seriously, because he's not a Force ghost at the end.
I'm laughing because your husband says, Alex, I expect you to mention the fate of Ben.
Yeah, no, I don't. Here's the thing. I do not mind him dying because I think the way he died was so heroic, and like, I'm not going to go too deep into it because obviously that's a Rise of Skywalker podcast moment. But like, I love his sacrifice. However, you don't give him any sort of goodbye. You don't give her any moment to grieve. I need closure. So I would like very much to have some sort of Force Ghost Rey show in situation, because they're a dyad. He put his life force into her. I am now assuming he's a part of her, especially because the novelization says, I will always be with you. So give me like Rey training the new generation and like Force Ghost Ben helping her from like the beyond or something. Or better yet, let's go get him from the world between worlds. Let's go do this and bring his butt back. Like, just give me that. Give me some sort of closure on that. That's his last line is an ouch. Like,
or
please.
Is Ben dead? I don't know, because if the midichlorians were split between the two of them, there's a lot. But I also have to say, my boy Connor says, tell the co-hosts they're amazing and have entertained me. And Brooke says the same. And I agree. This has been amazing. I love you guys. I know it's the first time I've had all of you on, but I do.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
Haley, same question.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It was, what other stories do you want? And yeah, I want the Kylo Ren comics in like a TV show or something. I just want like more on screen, Ben Solo. I have like a whole list here. Politics. I want to learn about the politics more. I would love a story on Exegol. Like, I wrote, I want like a kid of an officer who's watching everything happen. And it's kind of like, that's a lot of weaponry.
I've never
like,
thought about that.
Yeah, I want more from the unknown regions. Really want more Finn and Rey training. Like I said earlier, the Lego Star Wars scratched a little bit of an itch, but like I want more. And then I also wrote down a Clone Wars kind of show for the sequels, because the character building they did in that like was awesome.
I'm sorry. I'm just typing I need the show now. It's weird. Like I like even itch because I need it so bad. Like I'm some sort of crack addict that is addicted to something that's never happened. I don't know how to explain it, but no, I love it so much. So I've said the same thing many times, but I think it is what we need. I need Rey setting up her new Jedi Order, but I need it through a lens where she has these old Jedi texts with Luke's notes. And so as she turns through it, she sees that Luke went to this Force-sensitive group, learned this lesson, and then we watch Luke in his prime, maybe with Lord Santeca, maybe with Ben, maybe whoever, maybe by himself, travel to this group, experience this whole thing, learn this lesson that he felt that he needed to put notes in the side, and we watch that, and then and every episode begins and ends with Rey reading this, and then this is going to go into her new, more more perfect Jedi Order. That's what I need. More than
Greatest
anything
teacher
else.
failure is. Love that.
Yeah, that'd be him passing on all of his failures. He tried to get the failure out of the Jedi Order before. This is double straining, right? This is like refried beans. Like they've been fried once, but we can do more.
Always use more loot content.
Real quick, Alex and Haley, where can we find you? Alex first.
You can find me on TikTok or Instagram at RiahtheWolf cosplay. I mainly do cosplay content from like Marvel and The Witcher and Star Wars, and occasionally I go on a lot of Ray rants. So that's what you can find there.
Awesome. And Haley?
Corellia Coffeeworks on TikTok. Talk about Star Wars and then post whatever I want.
Awesome. I love it. This has been awesome. I don't know. I feel so blessed I get to talk to you guys. It's so much fun for me. I know.
Thank you so much for having us on here. This was an absolute blast. And I'm after I log off here, I am buying the Force Awakens novel and Bloodline. So I got some reading ahead of me.
Absolutely. Love you guys, and may the Force be with you always.
Also with you. Thank you.
Thank you.